Marley,
What's
how
going
are
on?
you? How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for coming to
Good,
the
good.
store today. Tell us about your childhood.
Um, Childhood was kind of I don't know, kind of a strange one, really. Um, when I was a kid, I moved from Birmingham to a little town, and basically the reason for that was my parents were both just like very troubled people. My dad suffered with psychosis and schizophrenia, still does, and my mom suffered with depression and a lot of other things. She had a lot of trauma from growing up and stuff like that. They both had trauma from growing up. Their parents mistreated them and stuff like that. They were both abused as kids in different ways. My mother in a sexual manner, my father and physically, and my father like mostly in a physical sort of manner by his dad and by his brother as well. So like growing up, like for me in that environment was quite a chaotic environment. From my earliest memories, really, is just like violence. Really, it's just always really been that. I never really remember like my dad and mom being together in any good times or anything like that. It's all just pretty much like I remember arguments, shouting, blood, like bruises, cuts, this and that,
Can you remember
stuff like
anything
that.
vividly from?
Yeah, there's a few things that I can remember like really vividly in terms of like my mom being like punched repeatedly in the face or like dragged around. I remember when I was a kid, I must have literally, it sounds crazy, but I must have literally been around 3 or maybe even younger. But I remember my mom being beaten up and sent to the shop with like change to go and change the change to get some money so that my dad could buy weed because he just had this mad weed habit, and if he couldn't get it, he'd just go mad. But what I later on found out, which I didn't know at the time as a kid, obviously, but what I later on found out as I got older was when I was around like 8 or 7 was that I always figured like, oh, my dad's just always been like this, whatever. But like when my mom left my dad and we moved away and stuff, my mom started speaking to me about things a bit more. And what I found out was that the abuse from my dad and my mom only started when I was born. So like that kind of triggered something in me where it was a bit like, is this my fault or is this like a consequence of just me being here? Like, why am I here? What's going on? Like, why would that make somebody do that to somebody else? And then like I'd find out like, oh, okay, sometimes my mom would get beat up because I'm crying or this and that. But my mom was like, she was a very resilient person. She's a very tough person, and she loves people very hard. And like she didn't blame him because he has psychosis and schizophrenia and stuff like that.
Did
So
you think? Do you think his Well, obviously now that you're older, do you think his psychosis came from smoking?
I think I think personally it come from some sort of like brain damage. I think because when he was a kid, basically his dad he used to have tics and stuff like that. You know, like similar to like autistic people.
Yeah.
Um, so he'd have like physical tics, but instead of dealing with it in any sort of way, back then obviously my granddad come from Jamaica. He didn't really know much about much, so his way of dealing with that was like, and his my dad's mom's way of dealing with that was like getting his head and just slamming it off the wall and stuff like that. So like that was the only time that they would stop him from doing these physical things. So they didn't really know what they're doing, and I guess his psychosis and schizophrenia could have developed as a means to like his own version of his mindful self-defense of that's his way to fight it back is have this like crazy side that explains things and tells him to do crazy stuff. But yeah, he would hear voices and talk to voices. He talked to people that weren't there, people that like we knew and stuff. Like he talked to his own dad when his dad would die. He'd walk in a circle in the garden talking to himself, and like he would be genuinely having a full conversation,
With
like
himself.
someone's there and no one's there. Like he's just walking around in circles and circles.
Oh wow.
And like if you interrupt that, you don't know what kind of person you're gonna get and stuff like that. But because my mom was so good in terms of like her heart, she would be like, you can still go see your dad when they split up. So I would go see my dad and he'd have other partners and stuff like that. And like I found out later on in life that I had a sister that was like 11 months older than me that he would have had around the same time. So like he was dealing with a lot of women, and when I'd go see him when he was with these other women, he was doing the same thing to them. So like, I'm going to see him, and like he's beating up these women and stuff. So like when it gets to the point where I'm like 9, 10, I'm trying to fight him now. I'm trying to like hit him with stuff and whatnot. And then it gets to the point where he's just grabbing me, and like because he's got these mental problems and that, he doesn't really understand things like he doesn't understand something like fatigue, like walking too long. He doesn't get that. For a kid, that's a madness. So like he'd walk me along like motorways for miles and miles and
Motorway.
miles and miles and miles, like in a pouring rain and shit like that, to get from like Leicester to fucking Birmingham, to get from somewhere to somewhere else. And it was like, sometimes he'd have to carry me that because I literally physically can't walk in that, but it was just like ridiculous. And he was the type of person that if someone was to pull over and try and help us, he wouldn't take it or nothing like that. We'd just be walking these crazy missions sometimes. He kidnapped me in that when I was a kid as well, from my mum.
What, do you remember that?
Yeah. When I was a kid.
How old were you?
I was about, no, I was about 6 then. We'd moved to this town, and one day he just turns up and he's literally talking to himself on the front step. No one's answered the door. He's talking to himself. We just hear this voice and they're like, yo, that's your dad, what's going on? And my mum's like, oh yeah, like I'll go talk to him. She's gone and spoke to him and that. And then she's let him come in. My mum's gone upstairs to sort something out to leave him with me. And he just grabbed me, literally just grabbed my arm, yanked me and just dragged me out and just started running with me. And then...
Did you have appropriate clothes on?
To be honest, I can't really remember what I was wearing. I don't think I think it would have just been like t-shirts or stuff like that, maybe a jumper. But yeah, it literally just dragged me out and just started running with me. And my mum ended up having to at this point, she had a boyfriend who was like a bit in the streets and stuff like that. So she had to get him to like come and sort it out and shit like that. So it got a bit hectic in that regard, but...
Obviously, your mum moved away from Birmingham for, I'm assuming, domestic violence from your dad.
Yeah.
Do you remember the incident that made her think, yeah, it's time to go now?
He basically he beat her up so bad, and like her jaw was pretty much broke, her cheekbones were broke, her eyes were just black. Like it was to the point where it was like I think it was just what she was thinking, like, okay, like he's actually going to kill me. But something that she didn't really realize was going on was that, like, when she wasn't around, I've got an older brother who's got a different dad. And when she wasn't around, he was beating my older brother as well. So she didn't know this until later on in life and stuff like that. So she didn't really realize the severity of the situation until it got to the point where, like, she's choking on her own blood and she's nearly dying and stuff like that. So then she's like, okay, I actually have to... So she got in touch with, like, domestic violence people. We got put in a unit in this town. And then that's how I ended up like escaping that shit, really.
So how was that for you, like moving to a unit for domestic violence? Because I'm assuming everybody else in there would have been going through the same kind of situation.
In a weird way, it was just solitude, really. It was just like, this is the first time that I've not been around just craziness all the time. But like, because of the environment in Birmingham and stuff like that, with the culture of violence at the time and things like that, the sort of stuff that I would be used to seeing and that, I wasn't seeing no more because now I'm in a town. So like the people out, like being loud, Larry, loud music blasting, fights, people like blood this here and there, crackheads, heroin addicts and shit like that. Like I wasn't seeing as much of that. Like it was about, but it wasn't just in your face like there until I got a bit older.
How long did you have to stay in there for?
So the domestic violence unit, we was only there for a few months, like maybe 4 or 5 months, something like that, until we got put into a flat, and then we got given a council house. And then when we got into this council house now was when like I started realizing like the problems run a bit deeper than just my dad, really. And like my mom has her problems.
You said that your mom was involved with, like, I guess someone that was like involved in the gang life. When did she meet him when you guys moved into the council house? Yeah,
pretty much. Like through that time period, she started getting close with her neighbours who, you know, them sort of people that just have drug dealers in and out of the house coming in and stuff. And then she's meeting this guy who became my stepdad for a while. And them two got on and whatnot. And I don't think she realised how deep he was really doing what he was doing at first. He just seemed like a young guy he's quite a bit younger than her. So to her, I guess he just seemed like a young guy who was like, he could handle himself. Do you know what I mean? He just seemed like one of them kind of guys. But then when it comes down to it, it's like, it went a lot deeper than that. And then when she found that out, it's not like she left or anything like that. Like she was already, I guess she already had feelings. So he was a serious drug dealer, like he was a very violent person, not to her, but in general. Like he had people scared of him everywhere. Like it was one of them sort of people where he's just involved in a lot of shit really. But he ended up he did end up going to jail later on down the line and stuff like that. But there's things that he's done that like I can't really, I can't really say. But like I've seen some, like I know of a lot of shit. But he was the type of person where like I only realized when I got a bit older how bad it was, because there were people, you know, you start hearing stories of like who's who and stuff like that. And then eventually like people start turning around to me like, yo, do you not even know like what's going on in your own house? Like, do you not understand? And then I get older and I'm finding things, and then it's like, okay, like I'm seeing man bagging up bits and bobs. I'm seeing man this and that. I'm seeing machines and that. I'm seeing things that like, oh, I'm like, oh, okay, like.
Did this affect your mum? Like having this level of, I guess, gangster in her house with her sons?
The thing is, really, I'll be honest, the only real way that it affected her is because she knew it was influencing me and my brother. Because my brother was going through a lot of shit with his dad. I was going through a lot of shit with my dad. And like the stepdad element there, like he was there financially and stuff like that, but emotionally and stuff, he was in the streets, so he couldn't really like be there in a father sense. So it affected us in the terms of like, we're now growing up and we're becoming way more violent. We're getting into way more confrontations. My brother started his little like criminal career and that, and it was just like, for my mum, it was like, now it's a problem because it's influencing everyone else and it's bringing everyone else into it. When I was like 13, I had an issue where I got gun bucked and this guy pointed a gun in my face, and this dog, this other guy had a dog and the dog was trying to bite me, and they were like smacking me up with poles and stuff. And I was like 13 at the time, and he's like quite a bit older than me. And I'm like, yo, like, I don't really know what to do in this situation. So I've had to ring people, and then like a lot of shit's happened as a result of that. So it's like, things like that made me realize I have to maneuver in a certain way, but it also made my mum go like, yo, this is actually what you're doing. Like, you're actually bringing this sort of shit into our house, so you need to get out. And then she started rejecting him. But she's not realizing that he's the only real reason that we're just not going mad.
Yeah.
Like, really and truly. Like,
so even though he was like on the road, but he was still like you guys' stepfather. But he's still keeping like a kind of balance.
He's still trying to keep he's still trying to keep us accountable. Like, he didn't want to get, because at the end of the day, I'm bringing police back to the house that he's doing mad shit in. So it's like, he don't want no police coming here and that way he's trying to lay his head in all this shit. And I get that, obviously, now as a grown man.
So before you got to high school, you had to go to counselling. What's the reasons behind for that? So
like, I just always had an anger problem when I was a kid. I guess a lot of people do. It's a very common thing, but for me, it was just like, I physically tried to kill people. Like, I actually physically, there's a few times when I would literally jump on top of a kid who's in like the same class as me, and I'm choking them to the point where like, their eyes are going red and that, and people are trying to drag me off. And I'm a kid, and I'm literally holding on to this kid. Like, I'm really trying to kill him. And like, it happened a few times and stuff. So it was getting to the point where like, to the teachers, it's like, this kid's level of violence is just not normal. And like, when teachers are telling me off, I'm throwing chairs at them, I'm smashing like everything in the classroom, I'm going mad. But the school that I went to was kind of a school, not a school just for naughty kids, but there were so many naughty kids there that it was like, there was other people with similar problems in it. There was a few other people that were doing the same sort of shit. So they didn't really like look into like what's going on. There was no like social service intervention. There was no like nothing really. It was just like, yeah, this kid's just on a mad thing.
Can I ask you a question though? Is that like, is it called homicidal?
Ideation.
Yeah. Is that what that is?
Yeah. I haven't been like actually diagnosed per se with that, but I spoke to people, and like, that's something that they've tried to say like, it's something that they thought was an issue with me. At this stage now in my life, I don't think I'm still struggling with that per se. I still have violent thoughts and tendencies and stuff, but I'm not like that bad per se. But when I was younger and that, it was very much like, I'm trying to kill everyone, like anyone I get into competition.
Do you think that was like from like home life though, and everything that you had been through up to that point anyway?
Yeah, and also in a sense of like paranoia of like, I know how serious violence is. I know people that have died. I know people that have been beat to death. I know people that whatever. So like, I know bare people that have been stabbed, shot, this and that. I don't know what you got in your pocket. I don't know who's around the corner. So like, if you're going to do something to me, I feel like you're actually trying to kill me. Like, you must be trying to kill me, because in my head, that's how I view violence. I don't view violence as like, oh, I just slap you in the face and just keep it moving. It's like, if you slap me in my face, you like, did you mean to have a knife in your hand? Is there a knife somewhere? Like, is there, you know what I mean? So I'm just super paranoid about shit like that. So
your older brother got put on, got sentenced for IPP. Do you remember what that was for? Yeah, so he was quite young at the time. He was just one of them youths that he was stealing, like, this is before the IPP thing, but he was one of the youths that he grew up
he was kind of like naughty in terms of school and all that shit, but then it gets to the point where he wants money and this and that, so he starts selling drugs and doing whatever. He's stealing motorbikes, he's stealing cars, he's selling stolen shit and that. And this is when he's like 14, 15, he's just graduating through crime gradually. And then it gets to the point where he's fucking nearly beating people to death, he's trying to chop people with machetes, he's fucking gunplay and all this other stuff. And then fucking, he got a bit older, and the maddest thing is about why he really, like the main thing that he went to jail for, because he got a lot of different charges, but the main thing that he went to jail for was a aggravated robbery with a gun, yeah, with a firearm. So the main reason that he actually went to jail, that the whole thing only happened because he was going to go to the youth club, yeah, he was like 16. He was going to go to the youth club was closed, and he saw some guy on a motorbike, and he was like, yo, who's that? Where's my man live? I want that motorbike. And then they went to go take the motorbike, and the guy was trying to fight him back, and he ended up going mad. Do you know what I mean?
So if the youth club was open, he would have been at that.
If the youth club was open, he'd have been just playing pool.
Sentences.
IPP is imprisonment for public protection, which is basically when you get sentenced, you don't get a date of release, you don't get told how many years you get in. It's basically an indefinite sentence. So in theory, you're being sentenced to 99 years when you're getting sentenced to that, because they just have to sit you down at a parole board at a certain time period. And then when you're eligible for parole, after you've done certain courses and stuff like that, that's when they decide whether whether you can come out or not. So like, there's a lot of people right now, as you'll know, who are on IPP tariffs where they're just in jail stuck. They can't go into the right jail to do a course, and they can't get out because of that. But my brother was lucky enough to be able to go through the motions, do the right courses and stuff like that.
So while your brother was in prison, were you on the road now?
That's what really made me jump into it, because it was like, I was already violent anyway. I was already like hanging around with people who were doing things and stuff like that. But then when he went to jail, it was kind of like, yo, I'm going to inherit all of his problems. Because he was doing too much. So I just thought in my head, everyone that's got a problem with him, they're going to see me, and now I'm the person that you've got a problem with. Carrying knives, weapons all the time, like, even sometimes stupid weapons, like little, like mini flick knives and shit like that, but a lot of time big kitchen knives and shit like that. Getting into confrontations with people, getting into fights all the time. Like, there was times in my life where I was pretty much like just looking for a problem, and I was hoping for a problem. I was just hoping that I'd bump into somebody would say something, and then it gives me a reason to just escalate it and escalate it and escalate it and escalate it. So there's just a lot of shit that happened in that regard, violent-wise and stuff like that. I've only really been charged for what I would consider as minor things, so I'm quite lucky in that regard, really.
Your brother got released after 6 years. When he came out, was he like a different person, or was he still the same?
I would say in terms of like characteristics, he was the same, but he was just a lot smarter. I think what happened with him was because he'd spent a considerable amount of time in jail, he realised that the streets was just so fake. Like, everyone that was there when he was out, and it was all glory and this and that, and he was the maddest person on the road and everyone's scared of him and that. Everyone that's licking your ass then is not writing you letters, sending you money and doing this and that when you're in jail, especially when like he's gone in at 16, 17. So like, everyone around your age group and that, they're not really adults to understand what you're going through. When he come out of jail, he basically just seen what I was on, and he just didn't want me to carry on the way I was going.
Was it at this point that you caught the attempted murder charge?
I get into a confrontation where I'm uptown. Me and my friend are in a McDonald's, yeah? And I don't know if you know about McDonald's, but McDonald's, for some reason, in town centres or city centres, is just always cracking. Fucking, it's live. So we're in this McDonald's, this guy's come in, he started being racist to my friend, and then he's gone to smack, like, we've come outside and we're arguing and that, and he's gone to smack my friend. And when he's gone to smack my friend, I've ended up hitting him, and then when he's gone on the floor, I've started like booting his head and stuff like that. So like, he's cracked his head open and all this shit, and there's blood everywhere and all this whatever. So the police the police are always in town anyway, so they're hearing on the radio, yo, there's someone right at McDonald's. They've pulled up, grips me up, while I'm like, just literally finished doing what I'm doing to my man. He's literally just completely just flat out. He looks gone, like, it looks like he's in another world. And at the time, unfortunately, my kind of mind state wasn't really caring. I wasn't thinking about that. I wasn't thinking about what sort of shit I could have done to this guy. I was just thinking, like, in my head, like I said, paranoia of like, what if this guy's got a weapon? What if this guy's got someone around him? What if this and that? I don't know who he is. I don't even want him to remember any of this. Like, in my head, I'm just like, yo, ultimate violence, like, as soon as possible, as much violence as possible. So when I got arrested, the police basically arrested me and was like, yeah, you've been arrested for attempted murder. And I'm like, what? Attempted murder? And they're like, what we've been told has happened, what you've just done to this guy on camera, right in town, that's attempted murder. You've tried to kill this guy. Oh, fuck, right. When I went to court and stuff like that, it got lowered to GBH of intent, and then it got lowered. Luckily, my barrister managed to get it down to like an affray. So I ended up not even having to go to prison for that. I got a suspended sentence, probation, fines, and all that shit. It made me think like, yeah, I'm lucky in terms of this and that, but in terms of how I react to things, it was I was stuck in a mindset, unfortunately, when it comes to situations with people where if I'm confronted with any sort of violence, it was like I'm always going to try and do the worst thing possible. I stayed violent in terms of how I still acted and stuff like that, but I just didn't put myself in the same situations where I'm just going out always on a mad thing, like putting myself in the places to be stupid. But what happened kind of in a weird way was the community service. I started doing like tree surgery sort of shit, where like cutting down trees, going to places, painting fences, going into flats and like painting the flats and stuff. And I started feeling like, you know what, actually, like, I didn't know I could do this shit. I didn't know I was handy. I didn't know, like, I actually kind of enjoyed it, isn't it? It just sounds like so basic to the normal person, like going and getting a job. But like when I grew up, it was like drug dealers, prostitutes, pimps, fucking crackheads, nitties, this and that. Like they were the people that were around, man, like in man's house coming in and out, in the next door's yard coming in and out, like grew up around all these sort of people. So I didn't think about things in a normal sense, innit? And I always figured, like, with my criminal record and that, why was anyone gonna fucking employ me? Do you know what I mean? I already had a criminal record at this point. I've already been fucking getting arrested, smacking people or doing this and that. Like, because of how school kind of wired my brain to make me think if you don't have GCSE, if you've got a criminal record, if you do this and that, you're just finished. Yeah. I thought, like, yeah, man's finished, innit? Like, that's it. Like, finito, I've just got to be a criminal.
Did you manage to finish school?
I got like kicked out towards the end of year 11, like, you know, early study leave and that, they kind of did that. This is like a little hack for a lot of people, people ain't gonna know this, but school can only really like permanently kick you out if your parents agree to it. If your parents don't agree to it and that, and they're going mad, they've got to really fight to get you kicked out. They've got to really do a mad thing to get you kicked out. So like when the teachers would be going mad at me, trying to like exclude me and stuff like that, my mom would come into school, and because my mom went to that school, my brother went to the same school, now I'm going there, and the teachers have treated us all the same. She's going mad at them like, yeah, you're gonna send him to jail like his brother. Because she's going mad all the time, fighting my case, they can't kick me out, innit? So it's like, I'm constantly just keeping up madness in school, just acting like a dickhead, to be honest with you. But it was just boredom and fucking anger, really. I got a few GCSEs, but it wasn't like what I would consider as grades good enough to go and get a decent job or anything. So I wasn't thinking about, I tried to go to college, basically, and do business, because I thought, oh, you know what, I'd rather open my own business and stuff. I didn't know going to college and learning business doesn't teach you how to open a business. It just teaches you just next stupid shit, just dumb shit. I don't really like, it's mad. But yeah, so I did that and I ended up getting kicked off that course.
Why did you get kicked off of that course?
Just fucking really just disrupting other people's shit, getting into little fucking arguments, people bullying people up in the college and that. You know, just not really on a bully man thing, but I was a guy, yeah, where like I hated bullies, innit? So if you was bullying someone, I'd bully you. Like I was one of them kind of guys. School for me was a weird experience, really. And then obviously I go to college, got kicked out of college, like I said, and then I went back to do sports. But I've gone there with my brethren who I'm on road with already. Like two of them I'm on road with, one of them he's a normal kind of guy. Gone to college with them on the same course, thinking somehow this is gonna work. Obviously it's not gonna work. We're all dickheads. me and my best friend got kicked off. Like it was long, so yeah.
So at this point while you were in college, you're still like kind of on road?
Yeah. Because at this point, basically, when I was like 16, 17, my mom had developed a fucking gambling addiction, and she couldn't like pay the rent for a certain amount of time or whatever. We got kicked out. So like when we got kicked out, she's had to go sort out whatever she sorted out, and I've moved in with a girl that I was with for a while. So from that point, I pretty much just lived on my own, innit, from like 16, 17. And so when I pretty much I felt like I had to sell drugs, innit? I had to do something. It was like, that's what am I going to do, innit? Like, I can't really get a decent job. I'm going to go, at that time, what, £6.15 a fucking hour or something. Like, that wasn't going to do nothing for me. And I've got to go to college as well to try and do something. So it was like, yeah, it just weren't making sense. It didn't make no sense to me.
So you're still obviously on the road, do what you're doing, and you're trying to go to college as well. So when did you realize, okay, I need to actually do something.
To be honest, like I always knew, like, you know what, like I'm better than this. And people always told me when I was a kid, because I was a smart youth when I wanted to be in it. When I listened and stuff, you know what I mean? I saw a thing about this recently where basically they said that you don't nurture somebody's abilities, you nurture their effort. If you nurture their abilities, then they can become big-headed and start thinking they're too smart. And like that kind of happened with me in school, where like I thought I was too sick for everything. I'm having mad conversations with man, teachers asking me what did I just say, and I'm repeating it back to them, and they're like, and I'm like, I'm just keeping up with things too quickly. But then it gets to the point where you start to fall back on certain shit. So for me, I always knew like I'm destined to do something. I just didn't know what it was, innit? It was like, I knew I liked history, I knew I liked fucking music, I knew I liked certain things, but it was like, how is someone from my background gonna come and do this?
So when did you come to the realization of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, so basically my brother had got me into warehouse jobs. And then through being in a warehouse, he's good looking and that, so people are chatting to, like women in the offices, they're all rating my man differently. And then they're clocking like he's actually quite nice and he's like a decent guy. He talks his way into a job, and then he talks his way into someone giving me a job in the office. So now I'm like a road youth, and I've never put on like normal clothes really, like except for going to a funeral or a wedding, like put on a suit or something. My brother's taking me to go buy these like fucking office wear clothes and shit like that. And I'm thinking like, yo, this is fucking mad. I'm walking to work, seeing people I know and that, and people, man, them are laughing at me and that. I'm getting mad, like, yo, it's vexing my head. You don't understand? I'm looking all smart and that. I'm thinking like, oh, fuck me. But then I'm getting to work and these people, like, they're not even thinking. I'm thinking like, oh, I come from this world. How are these people going to react to me and that? They're just thinking like, yo, he's a nice guy. Like, he's charming, he's whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yo, maybe I am actually this as well. Maybe I'm not just this fucking guy who's doing whatever. But yeah, like I started finding out like certain things about myself, that I'm good with technology, I'm good with like admin, I'm good with computers, I'm sick at learning things. So I just lied my way into better jobs. I'll be real.
Do you know at this point, did you still have a relationship with your dad?
No. At that point, I hadn't seen him since I was about maybe 12. And then I didn't see him from 12 to 18. 18 is the last time I seen him. Last time I seen him, yeah, like this is how like bugged out he is. Psychotic, schizophrenic, yeah. I get a phone call from someone, they're like, yo, there's this mixed race, like black brother running around looking for you. I'm like, I ain't done nothing to no black people. Where I live, there's not that many black people. So we all know each other. So like, I'm cool with all the black people there. So like, I'm not gonna do nothing to no black people around there. It sounds mad. I'm not racist, but that's just what it is, isn't it? I didn't like getting into conversations with people that are black. It was weird to me, like when we beefed over ends and that, and like black people are beefing us. I'm like, yo. And then now I'm older, we're cool and that, but it's like, I get this phone call, guys like, yeah, this guy's looking for you, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm walking through town with a few men, and I see this brother standing there in this long trench coat thing, yeah, and he's just staring at me, like, with his eyes, his mouth's just wide open, and he's got like a bit of jewel coming out his mouth and that. I'm like, yo, is that my fucking dad? Like, what the fuck's he doing, yeah? He's just standing there looking bugged out. And he's just like, come over to me, he's like, yo, what's going on, da-da-da, started trying to hug me and that. I've gone for a walk with him for like 10 minutes. We've gone into a pub, and he's like, yeah, I'll buy you a pint, yeah, you're 18 now, innit, da-da-da, I'll buy you a pint. So he's bought me a pint of Guinness, and then he's backed out bare like fake cigarettes, yeah, and just gave me bare packets of these fake cigarettes. And then he's just like, yeah, backed out some change. It must have been like £18 in change or something like that, yeah. And then he's literally, I've smoked a zoot with him, and then he's gone, and that was it.
Never seen him again?
Never seen him again. Like, I don't even know where he is. Like, I ain't spoke to him since nothing. Like, I ain't even got his number, nothing. Like, I don't know where I've gone from.
When you were younger, did he ever get any like professional help, like put on medication, section?
He's been sectioned bare times. He's been sectioned like very often and stuff like that. But he's a charming guy, unfortunately. Like, a lot of times, like, two of the people that he ended up being with after my mom, that like when I was a kid, I'd go to theirs and see them all together and that. Two of the people that he got with were like his nurses from when he was in hospital. He'd get sectioned and he'd draw the nurse. And then they get sectioned somewhere else and draw the next nurse. Like, I'm not mad, they just think I'm mad. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I don't know how he's fucking
Do you think that affected you though, as you grew up, grew up after 18 and stuff like that, not knowing where your dad is or not knowing if he's okay?
Yeah, massively, because in a way it affected me in a good way, because one part of me was like, I had to find an identity somehow, so I looked to other people for that identity, but it wasn't always like, because like, I'll be real, the road man and that, around man, they weren't that smart. So like, when they're speaking to me and saying to me like, yo, you're actually quite smart, you should do something else, sort of thing, I'm actually taking it in and I'm thinking like, yeah, you know what, there's a lot of shit that I can't learn from you that I'm interested in. So like, for me, learning became my big thing, and I started learning about like people in history who have been through bare mad shit and done mad shit and been on like great war campaigns and shit like that, and I started like drawing strength from like these other stories of mad people and shit that they've been through. So in a way, it kind of helped me like develop a sense of like what I want to be, but I could never figure out who I am. I never knew who I was, so that was always a big problem in terms of like, I wouldn't say identity crisis, but in terms of like, you kind of need to know things about your family, innit? There's certain things you need to know, like what people were on, how was this, how was that, and like from my memories and that, it's just madness, innit? So it gets to the point where it's like I can't really escape what's going on in my ends, nothing like that. Like, it's just fucking, I'm too deep in. I'm already like established. I'm already doing things. I'm already fucking whatever. And my brothers basically just gave me the lifeline. Like, you know what? If you don't just go now, what are you gonna do? Like, you're just gonna be the best fucking dickhead in rugby. You're just gonna be the best prick in this area. Like, realistically, man was a prick, innit? Like, I was running around being a dickhead, doing mad things, like selling. You know what I mean? It was just, it's not the right way of life, innit? So it was like, when he said that to me, it's kind of like, you know what? You're right, innit? Like, you've done all this shit, you've gone to jail and this and that, and it wasn't worth it. You didn't get nothing from it. Like, there's no trophy, there's no fucking, you know what I mean? The streets don't love you back, innit? Like, you can love the streets all you want. The music's cool and all that, but it don't do nothing back for you.
So when you went away and started helping him run his business, is this when you found like the love of trying to like help people? Like, how did you get into like helping people that were like you?
I'll be honest, the helping thing was like always kind of there, really. Like, I was always the guy that like was like, I tried to be the person that would do everything first, because if someone suggested, like, oh, we've got beef with this guy, like, yo, he's over there, it was like, I'm always trying to be in front so that other people aren't getting into the trouble. Because it's like, if I go initiate the thing, at least then it's all my fault and no one can really. It was always like this thing in me where like I kind of cared so much about other people around me. I didn't want to see them go to jail and that. And I was scared of my friends going to prison because my brother went to prison. My mum went to prison when she was pregnant with my brother before I was even born and that. So like, and then loads of my family members, my uncle's in jail for murder as well. I had loads of people around me in jail. So it was like, I just really didn't want to lose the people that I loved, innit? So it was like, I'm going to do everything for you. You don't have to do anything. Just sit back and relax.
Yeah.
I'll go deal with it. From being around my brother and seeing how he was reacting to certain things, and like, he had a daughter, and his daughter like changed his mindset in terms of being in a family and like how a family's supposed to act and stuff. From seeing his sort of elevation and that, it made me realize like, you know what, fucking, I do actually have something that I want to give to people, but what is it? And then eventually, it's took me all this time now to like, I started this YouTube thing like 9 months ago or something, or maybe 6 months ago. It took me all this time to now to actually figure out how to implement that, because I was always around people in the streets. I was always telling people would tell me, my oldest told me, yo, you're smart, you don't need to do this. So when I'm around other people, if they've got anything, any spark, anything that they're interested in, I'm like, yo, fucking do that. What are you doing this for? You don't need to be on road. You don't need to do this. Go do that. Like, stick to this, stick to that. But I just didn't have that care for myself. And when I realized one day I actually need to take that same consideration, give it to myself, that's when I started leveling up in terms of like, I'm getting better paid jobs. I'm fucking out at the ends. I'm literally just a whole different person. Like, I'm meeting people, no one knows anything about me, and like, no one would ever suspect it either. But like, where I'm from, it's like, everyone's always expected that. Like, everyone's just always just expecting me to be on one type of time. People don't really know who I am. They only know like who I was. As time's gone on, yeah, I grew up in a generation where like rap music was obviously the soundtrack to man's life to an extent, but I listened to people like Jay-Z, 50 Cent and that, and they tell you both sides of the story, innit? It was like, you had this fucking reality where they're losing people, there's visits in jail, there's this and that, you gotta send money for lawyers, wherever. You understand there's consequences to the thing when you step into it. So when I stepped into it, I knew what came with it. I was always ready to go and do the maddest sentence or to whatever, get my head licked off or whatever. Like, I was ready, innit? Like, whatever. But when it comes to fucking these youths and that, it's like all they're listening to is man saying, I win, I win, I win, I win, I win. I got this man down, I got that man down, I stabbed this man, I stabbed that man, I shot man, I shot man, I shot this, I shot that. It's like, yo, you're not really understanding the reality of this, of what's going on. You got all these youths in the fucking comments and that, talking about like scoreboards and fucking who this person's murked and this and that. And they're not clocking who, like what's happening. Mothers are losing their kids and this and that. And like, coming from a similar sort of background where I've had the fortunate opportunity to be able to change my life, I figured like I do want to offer that to people, but where I'm reaching out to people where I'm from, they're not really listening to man. But there's people out there that like do need that help that necessarily I might not even be able to see face to face. And then it kind of made me want to build a platform around helping people. And I thought like, okay, so how can I help? How can I get to these people that I need to help? I'll explain what they're listening to. I'll explain what they're actually, what the reality is of all this shit, innit? At first I started with making a couple of videos on my phone about like little court cases that happened and this and that. I'm just basically saying like, yo, I'm trying to put out things to people in a way, like put a message across, but not too deep or nothing. Where I'm like trying to rant at people and say like, oh, come out of the streets, but I'm trying to say like, yo, this is the reality, innit? So it's like people don't realize like the police are fucking on it. Not only are they on it, but the streets are fake. Not only are the streets fake, but you're gonna die or your friends are gonna die. That's the reality. So like, I want these youths to listen to this music and think with a pinch of salt at least and be like, yo, this is why people need to stop hating on people like Central C and that, because like you're changing the dynamic of drill in a way where it's making it less violent. It's not, you get me? It's not like, there's certain men that are in this drill thing that are really just like, yo, you know, obviously they're on what they're on, innit? Yeah. They're really on what they're on. But and that's fine, do what you're doing, innit? Like if you're involved in that shit, cool. As long as you get someone who's also involved and no innocence, whatever, like hats off to you if that's what you want to do.
But you think it influences kids?
Influences kids massively, massively. If I grew up in an era of drill, yo, I would have been fucking just like all these fucking kids getting stabbed up, stabbing each other to death, like fucking just like it, man. And it's really sad because they're little kids, man. They're fucking 15, 13, 14, listening to this shit, thinking they're heavy and that, and they're rolling out and they will fucking kill you, man. So yeah, like I'm just focused on fucking helping my mom and like basically just trying to keep my family together in one sense.
So what would you say like changed your mindset from being, you know, how you were and how you are now?
To be honest with you, I think it's multiple different things. I think deep down, most people, I'll be real, like most of the people, if you're a road youth and you're watching this, like you know, I'm speaking to you, you know you're not as sick as you think you are. Like you know it, innit? We all know it deep down. We're not as big and bad as we portray ourselves. We're not this big fucking gangster that wants to kill 150 people. We're not this fucking killer who's maliciously gonna stab you 16 times and not think about it and not have no consequence of that 10 years down the line and all this shit. People, I've spoken to some serious fucking murderers. I've never spoken to no one who's done a sentence for murder and come out and be like, yeah, that was worth it. That was fucking, that was sick. There's not many people that are really on that type of timing, and the only people that really do stand there and say that is because they killed someone who did something mad to their wife, mad to their mom, mad to their daughter. And the wickedest thing is, you go out and murk one of these youths and that, and you're in a little gang war or whatever. Now you can't protect your mom, your sister, your daughter, your this and that. So it's like, really and truly, we've all got this warriors problem where we're trying to be like a warrior in the past and that, but like we're in the present, innit? We're not in the fucking, we're not in the Viking times and all this other shit. We don't need to be rolling around fucking doing a madness and that. Like really and truly, if you want to protect what you love, you need to be free. You get me? And any way to stay free is not to be doing this shit. But I get it, innit? People's brothers get killed, people's friends get killed, this and that. It's not as simple as like just stopping it. But if you're a man who you know fully, like, yo, I don't want to be in this shit, it is as simple as going, getting a job and moving out your ends. It's like, most of these youths that are on road, they're not even making 5 bills a week. They're not making 3 bills a week. They're not making bread. A lot of them are not making bread and they're risking their lives, they're risking their freedom. They're on the block with a knife, looking to fucking stab someone, kill someone over fucking affiliations or some dumb shit and that. And it's like, it's just a sad thing really. Yeah. There's ways to stop it, but the only way to stop it is to reach back out to these people and be like, yo. So like, I've had people contact me. Unfortunately, some of them are like really young in it. Some of them, they can't just go straight into work and that. Like one lad was like 17, talking about some of the situations he'd been in and that. He's from Newham, and he's like asking for advice and stuff like that. I gave him some advice and shit, but it's like, you're 17, so you've still got to wait until you're even 18. So in that time period, are you even going to make it to 18? Do you know what I mean? This is the saddest thing about it for these youths, man. Like, it's a mad thing.
That's sad. Because so what do you think, when you speak to them, what do you think the common denominator of why, because most of them are boys, I'm assuming, why these young boys are the way that they are?
Environment, man. The environment really shapes you. Like, in the Newham one that I've done, it's more on an individual basis where I touch on how people get into the streets. But in the Peckham one, it's more about, like, I talk about, there's parts where we go into, like, why specific gang members join the streets, but it covers, like, everything in terms of, like, the socio-economical issues, obviously money, fucking getting bullied, you're from this ends, you're from that ends, your heritage, you might come from another country, have a mad accent, people are bullying you, now you're moving mad, having to do this and that. There's so many different factors that play into this. And then it's like, if your environment, let's say, like, I'm very, very, very fucking fortunate, I'll be real, because I moved from Birmingham to fucking a town where people aren't on what they're on in Brum, innit? Like, when I come back to Birmingham and see certain people and this and that, it's like, fuck me, man, you lot are moving mad. I get the difference in, like, how bad things can be from a decent sort of place to a really bad place, innit? I'm quite fortunate where, like I said, in this area, there's not that much gun crime. There's not that many people getting stabbed to death. It's not that common. You get me? It started to get more common lately because of the youths and drilling and all this other shit. But, like, it wasn't mental for me growing up. I was more like the problem, innit? Yeah. It was more actually me rather than my environment.
So what does the future hold for you now?
Trying to focus on this YouTube thing, trying to focus on just getting content out there and just getting not necessarily just getting the message out there to people, but just, like, showing things as the reality of what they are, innit? Like, people oftentimes are quick to forget what comes behind everything. Like, behind this camera now, it's got people here working, setting up things, this and that. Like, it's area, you've had to rent this place out, this and that. Like, people don't see that in the finished product. So when you're hearing the finished product and it's man talking about, man's done this to this person, just remember that someone's son, someone's mum's grieving that person, someone's sister, someone's brother, whatever. Like, it is it's very fucking real. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just very fortunate that I'm just not from this generation. Because God knows what would have happened to me, mate, or to somebody else. Thank you for coming to the stool today. Thank you. So tell the people where they can find you. So I'm on YouTube, Underworld, Unraveled. I've got a few last time I put a video out was a few months ago, but a few videos out, probably about 20 in total, but only the last, like, 7 ones are worth watching, I'll be real. But yeah, I've got a big documentary coming soon. I'm gonna start getting some clips made and stuff like that as well. So you'll see me on everywhere eventually. I've done a couple of podcasts that haven't come out yet and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be getting out there a bit more in that element as well. Try and, like, interact a bit more instead of just being behind the scenes and that. But yeah, hopefully I'll be about. All right, thank you for coming to the stool today. Thank you for having me. If you like this video and you like this kind of content, don't forget to like, share with your friends and subscribe. If you have a story that you're interested in telling, just send us an email or send us a DM on Instagram, and that's the stool. Thank you. Thank you. You're welcome. I think I said that right.